Chapter 2: A Prince in Chains. Adrian was led down another winding hallway, passing by a series of intricately designed doors and chambers, each one as grand and imposing as the last. The Lunari soldiers accompanying him remained silent, their faces impassive and unreadable. The soldiers led him through the dimly lit hallways, and Adrian felt a sense of unease settle in his stomach. He had a feeling that he was being taken somewhere he did not want to go. Finally, they stopped outside a large room filled with a team of Lunari seamstresses and servants waiting for him. The room was ornate and grand, filled with intricate tapestries and gilded pillars. Adrian had to admit that it was a far cry from the simple, practical architecture of Solari. The Lunari clearly had a taste for luxury and excess. Adrian was quickly stripped of his Solari clothes and put in a set of rough, ill-fitting clothes. He realized with a sinking feeling that he was being dressed as a Lunari slave. The clothes were designed to be revealing and scandalous, made to accentuate the body and draw attention to the wearer. Adrian felt a deep sense of shame looking at the sheer fabric adorned with cheap, glittering beads that shone in the dim candlelight. The pants were baggy and flowing, made to look like a harem dancer's outfit, and were adorned with glittering beads and trinkets. Adrian felt ridiculous in the outfit, like he was wearing a costume. The Lunari seamstresses worked quickly, pinning and adjusting the outfit until it fit as best as it could. They added more beads and trinkets, giving Adrian the look of a slave in a harem. Adrian felt exposed and vulnerable, the rough fabric chafing against his skin. The Solari prince tried to keep his composure, but he couldn't help but feel humiliated by the outfit. He knew that the Lunari were trying to break him, to strip him of his dignity and pride. But he refused to let them win. When they were done, Adrian was led to the grand feast hall, where the Moon Queen and her court were waiting. The room was packed with Lunari nobles, dressed in their finest clothes and adorned with jewels. The Solari prince felt the eyes of the crowd on him as he was led to the center of the room, his heart racing. He could feel the weight of their judgment and contempt, and he knew that he was being displayed like some exotic animal. He wondered what his father would think if he could see him now, dressed like a slave and paraded around like a trophy. The Moon Queen sat at the head of the room, flanked by her advisors and nobles. Adrian could feel her eyes on him, studying him with a cold, calculating gaze. He wondered what she had in store for him, and whether she would ever let him go. As he stood there, feeling vulnerable and exposed, Adrian's gaze flickered over to Theron, who was standing at the edge of the room, watching him with a strange expression. Adrian couldn't read his thoughts, but he knew that Theron was not to be trusted. The queen was a master manipulator, and the Solari prince wondered what she had in store for him. The Moon Queen regarded him with a cold gaze.
"Prince of the Solari,"
she said, her voice dripping with disdain.
"I hope you're enjoying your stay in our kingdom."
Adrian gritted his teeth, refusing to let her see him falter.
"What do you want from me?"
The Moon Queen smiled, a cold, malicious grin.
"I want you to dance. I want you to show my court what a skilled dancer you are."
Adrian felt a sense of horror wash over him. He had never been a good dancer, and the thought of performing in front of the Lunari court filled him with dread. Adrian bristled at her tone, but he refused to back down.
"I am not a slave. I will not degrade myself by dancing for your amusement."
The Moon Queen regarded him with a cold, calculating gaze.
"You think you're too good to dance for us?"
she asked, her voice laced with malice.
"Well, let me remind you that you are not in a position to refuse."
Adrian's heart sank as the Moon Queen brought out another captured Solari soldier. The soldier was beaten and bruised, his eyes pleading with Adrian to save him. Adrian felt a sense of desperation welling up within him. He knew that he couldn't let the Lunari kill one of his own, but he also couldn't bring himself to degrade himself by dancing for them. He weighed his options carefully, his mind racing. Finally, he made his decision. He would dance. He stretched his aching limbs, feeling the weight of the slave outfit clinging to his skin. Then he took a deep breath, steadying himself. The music began to play and Adrian began to move. His movements were slow and deliberate, his body flowing like water. He refused to let the Lunari break him, but he also knew that he had to keep his wits about him. As Adrian danced in front of the Lunari court, he could feel their eyes on him, watching him with amusement and disdain. The court jeered and laughed at his stilted and clumsy dance. Adrian felt a sense of humiliation wash over him, but he refused to let them break him. He held his head high, projecting an air of confidence and pride. The melody being played was on a stringed instrument, accompanied by the steady beat of a drum. It had a slow, hypnotic rhythm that seemed to draw Adrian in, even as he tried to resist. Despite his awkwardness, Adrian found himself getting lost in the music. He tried to focus on his steps, on the movements of his body, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation and abandon as he danced. Adrian caught sight of Theron watching him from the edge of the room. Theron's expression was inscrutable, but Adrian could tell that he was watching him closely. The Lunari court continued to jeer and laugh, their insults and taunts ringing in Adrian's ears. As the dance came to an end, the Moon Queen regarded him with a pleasured grin.
You see, Prince of the Solari, you are not too good to dance for us.
Adrian felt a sense of disgust and humiliation wash over him, but he refused to let the Lunari see his weakness.
You have proven yourself to be a skilled dancer. Perhaps we should consider making you a permanent fixture in our court.
Adrian bristled at her words, his anger rising.
I am not here to entertain you, Moon Queen. I am a prince of Solari, and I demand to be treated with respect.
The Moon Queen's smile disappeared, replaced with a look of cold fury.
You will learn your place, Solari Prince, and you will learn it quickly, or you will suffer the consequences.
Adrian's heart sank as he watched the Moon Queen walk towards the soldier he had danced to save. He knew that she was not to be trusted, but he had hoped that she would show mercy. But mercy was not in the Moon Queen's nature. With a flick of her wrist, she summoned a blast of dark energy that struck the soldier, killing him instantly. Adrian fell to his knees, his hands shaking with fury and dismay. He had failed to save the soldier, and now he felt responsible for his death. The Moon Queen stood over him, a look of gleeful satisfaction on her face.
I told you that I could bring you to your knees, Solari Prince,
she said, her voice cold and menacing. Adrian glared up at her, his eyes burning with anger.
You are a monster.
The Moon Queen laughed, a cold, humorless sound.
And yet, it is your people who have started this war. Your people who have invaded our lands and killed our citizens. You are the true monsters, Solari Prince.
Adrian seethed with anger as the Moon Queen accused his people of being monsters. He could feel the weight of her words, as if she were trying to pin the blame for the war solely on Solari.
You know that is not true.
Adrian retorted, his voice trembling with anger.
Our people are not monsters. We only defend ourselves against your aggression.
The Moon Queen's eyes narrowed as she regarded Adrian with suspicion.
Your father is a cunning man. I wonder what secrets he might be keeping from you.
Adrian bristled at her words, but he knew that he had to keep his cool. He could not let the Moon Queen see him falter.
I trust my father. He has always been honest with me.
The Moon Queen's smile was cold and insincere.
You are a fool if you think your father has told you everything. There's secrets in every kingdom, even Solari.
With that, she dismissed him, and Adrian was led away from the feast. As the guards led him down the winding corridors, Adrian couldn't help but wonder what the Moon Queen meant by her words. Was his father hiding something from him? Or was it just another one of her tricks? He knew that he couldn't trust the Lunari, no matter what they said or did. He had to be careful, to keep his wits about him if he wanted to survive. Suddenly, the guards escorting him halted, and Adrian looked up to find Theron. He must have followed from the feast hall. To Adrian's surprise, the Lunari man orders the guards away with a casual wave of his hand. Adrian watches in confusion as they scatter, and he was left alone with the mysterious man.
Come with me.
Theron turned and began walking, assuming the prince would follow. Adrian considered running, but given the circumstances, he probably wouldn't get very far. Adrian followed Theron down the halls until the man turned into one of the rooms. As he entered, Adrian scanned the area for any potential escape routes. He was still guarded and angry after what had happened to his fallen comrade, and he couldn't help but wonder if Theron was in on the Moon Queen's plans. They were standing in what appeared to be someone's bedroom. One could only assume it was Theron's. As he took in more of the room, Adrian noticed small details that spoke to the Lunari man's character. There were books scattered about, with titles ranging from history, to philosophy, to romance. There was a small chessboard on a table, with pieces arranged in the middle of a game. And there were various artifacts from different parts of the Lunari kingdom, including a set of ornate knives and a colorful tapestry depicting a battle scene. Theron watched him closely, his expression inscrutable, a faint smile on his lips.
Do you like what you see?
He asked, his tone casual. Adrian glared at him, not in the mood for Theron's games.
Am I here to admire your room?
Theron chuckled.
Of course not. But you must admit, it's much more comfortable than your cell.
What is it you want?
Theron seemed to sense his unease.
Don't worry. I'm not going to do anything untoward,
he said with a smirk. Adrian scowled, refusing to give Theron the satisfaction of a response. He looked down at his slave clothes, feeling a sense of shame wash over him. Theron tossed the tunic towards Adrian.
Here, put this on. I wouldn't want you catching a chill in those skimpy slave clothes.
The Lunari man turned away to give him some privacy. Adrian hesitated for a moment, unsure if he could trust Theron. But he knew that he couldn't go on wearing these clothes, not if he wanted to maintain his dignity. Adrian quickly changed, feeling a sense of relief as he shed the humiliating outfit. The tunic that Theron gave to Adrian was made of a soft, lightweight fabric that felt cool against his skin. It was a deep blue color, trimmed with gold embroidery that glinted in the light. Adrian couldn't help but notice the fine craftsmanship of the tunic, and he wondered if it was a common style in Lunari fashion.
Thank you.
Theron turned back towards him, a playful grin on his face.
Now, don't get too comfortable. You're still my mother's prisoner after all.
Your mother?
Adrian gaped. This man was a Lunari prince. Theron feigned being hurt as he slumped down into a plush armchair.
What? Haven't heard of me? Not many have.
Adrian floundered. He knew of Prince Eric's of Lunari, but any other sons were. Theron spoke the words as they ran through Adrian's mind.
I'm bastard born.
The dark-haired man grins, but then his lips fall into a solemn line.
I am sorry about your comrade. My mother can be ruthless when she wants to be.
Adrian maddened at the mention of the Moon Queen, but he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that Theron wasn't entirely on her side.
So, Prince Adrian of Solari,
Theron said, a playful smirk on his face.
Tell me, are all Solari as stubborn as you?
Adrian bristled at the teasing tone, but he couldn't help but feel a hint of amusement himself. Theron's charm was difficult to resist, even if he was a Lunari.
We are a proud people. We will not be broken easily.
Theron chuckled, his eyes dancing with mirth.
Oh, but there's a difference between being proud and being foolish. Sometimes, the wisest course of action is to bend, rather than break.
Adrian gritted his teeth at Theron's words, his anger bubbling beneath the surface. He couldn't believe that Theron was trying to convince him to bend to the Lunari's will.
I will not bend to your people. We are fighting to protect our homeland from your aggression.
Theron raised an eyebrow, a playful smile on his lips.
Aggression. I think you'll find that the Lunari are simply defending themselves from Solari invasion.
Adrian scoffed, his eyes flashing with anger.
That's a load of nonsense. The Solari are the true defenders of justice and freedom.
Theron leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful.
Justice and freedom. Two noble ideals, to be sure. But who's to say that the Lunari don't share those ideals?
Adrian snorted, feeling a sense of frustration at Theron's vague riddles.
Actions speak louder than words, and your people's actions speak volumes.
Theron regarded him with a steady gaze, his eyes serious.
Perhaps. But there are always two sides to a story. Perhaps it's time for you to hear ours.
Adrian shook his head, his anger still simmering beneath the surface. He couldn't believe that Theron was trying to manipulate him with his smooth words.
I will not betray my people.
Theron leaned forward, his eyes searching Adrian's.
I never asked you to. But it wouldn't hurt to listen, would it? To try and understand where we're coming from.
But despite his anger, Adrian couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity about the Lunari's perspective. Perhaps it was time to hear their side of the story, and see if there was any truth to their claims of Solari aggression.